Welcome to Words of Wisdom from Kick-Ass Women.
Stories and advice about moving forward, punching through that glass ceiling, pushing harder, and blazing trails from women we really admire.
Hi, everyone. I'm Liz Brohan.
And I'm Marie Olivieri, and welcome to Words of Wisdom from Kick-Ass Women.
Yeah, today's going to be a kick-ass day. We actually have somebody who everybody's going to know. She's sort of infamous, and she's got a brand new book out. So let's kind of start there, Mary.
Okay.
I know you're writing a book, correct?
Yes, yeah, I'm right. I'm in the middle of two, actually. One is about leveraging improvisation for your writing. I've talked about that a lot. And the other one is kind of a comedic take on advice for people in marketing to be more successful with their agencies. So, but I have some great marketing stories. But that is nothing in comparison to our guest and what she's up to. So,
absolutely. We're so excited. We're just going to jump right in. With us today is Marie Newman. Woo-hoo. And infamous, I said earlier, because she was pretty infamous as a former Congresswoman from right here in Illinois. But also, she's just got an amazing background. You know, she has been the CEO of nonprofits. She is a serial entrepreneur, and she's a marketing guru. And now she's also an advisor. And I think you're currently best known for being a social activist, which is, something we definitely want to get to today. So welcome, Marie.
Welcome.
Thank you for being here.
It's so good to be here.
We know one of the things about you is that you end up in all of these unexpected situations, that maybe you don't see coming, and then you just solve for it. So tell us a little bit about how all this started.
Years ago, I had a saying when there was a problem in our community or in our family. It was when my husband and I were first married 29 years. And I said, you know what? Nobody ever wants to pick up the sticky ball, right? So we're all at a party, we're having a good time, and there's a gross, hairy sticky ball, and everybody's walking around it real far, giving it a wide berth, and no one wants to touch it. And it drives me crazy because it needs to be picked up and addressed, right? So I am always the person that picks up the sticky bill, always, like in every situation. And so that's how it got started. I mean, I've been an activist since my early 20s, working on women's rights and reproductive care and civil rights in college, immigrant rights, all of that. So now that I'm circling back to full-on activism, a good chunk of my time now, it feels right.
Oh, that's great. But we also know that it started with being an activist for your children.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you tell us a little bit about what started that?
Sure. The great saying that necessity is the mother of invention.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Absolutely is, right? And as I always say that sometimes the most unqualified person that really wants to solve the problem is the best qualified, right?
Interesting.
So when my oldest, who there's a happy ending to the story, my oldest was severely bullied I think it was right around when he was 9, 10, 11. We kept on trying new things, friend groups, activities, games, all of the things, right? And nothing was working. And nobody wanted to talk about it because I lived in a town that's a lovely place. We still have dear friends there here in the Chicago area. And nobody wanted to talk about it. And so we kept not talking about it. And then I had a close friend who was happening the same. Her oldest child was getting bullied all the time. And so we kept talking about it. And then one day I said, you know what? I'm just going to do the best thing, be honest, open, and transparent. So literally opened up the kimono one day at a PTA meeting. And I said, yeah, there's a bullying problem in this town. I don't know what to tell you.
Right.
And here's what's happening to my child.
And fearlessly just saying it, right?
Yeah,
which is, I think, important for our listeners. It's if
just
you're the one to
say
pick up a sticky ball, put it out there and say it because nothing's going to change if you don't.
That's right. And honesty really is the best policy in every way, right? So put it out there. That night I went home and I got 60 calls of crying parents. I have the same problem.
Wow.
Right. And then I knew oh wow, I got to get that mama sword out of the closet and start slashing around a little
The
bit. Like,
mama
oh
sword.
Lord, yeah, So, so I did. So we built a committee of 100 people with experts on it and presented a data deck to the
Wow.
superintendent and the board of education. They all were mouth agape because at that point, and this was rare then. This is 14, 15 years ago. It was rare to hear about a suicide attempt. But we told that story. They
Oh.
were ashen. And so they did develop a committee and started working on it. From there, Governor Quinn at the time asked me to help with a manual on anti-bullying that actually still used today quite a bit in Illinois. Passed a law, went to the Obama summit, helped pass the executive order that he put forth on bullying, requiring every school to have an anti-bullying policy. Then my close friend Jackie and I wrote a manual on it because, there wasn't one.
Wow.
So
How
again,
about it?
didn't exist. I built it from scratch, not to segue right into the book. I'm not trying to press that, but everything I've done has been built from scratch. So I built all those systems from scratch, just from research, and then, built the system for scratch.
I think it's really important for people to hear that, right? It sounds like you saw an issue. It was personal. You applied passion and made change. And I think a lot of people sometimes feel helpless, right? And see something and don't know what to do. What do you think would be a good piece of advice for anybody finding themselves in that situation? How do they find that strength to lean into it and fight for what they know is right?
I think it comes down to, I say this a lot in both in our communities, society, and and in our politics today is that the thing that hurts us and saves us is our ego.
Mm.
And it is really, it's this deep intrinsic thing that you do not want your child to fail, right? You can't possibly manage it. I mean, I just couldn't imagine letting my kids fail, right?
Right.
And so that propels you into such a passionate position. So go with your passion. And when something's really bothering you, I just tell this story all the time is that whenever I have a new challenge I need to go after or a dream, something I've always wanted to do, it starts way back here and it's a whisper. Dreams don't come, with a big scream, right? Starts out small and starts rounding the bend to your front, and then it's yelling at you. And by the time it yells at you, you got to yell back and you got to do something. So when you're at your most fearful point or you're afraid of the issue, sort out in your head really clearly, am I going to solve the problem or will I make this problem better as a result of any level of effort, right? And make that effort, right? If you can make anything in the world a little better, take the effort.
Well,
And
go ahead,
you
Liz.
did it kind of with baby steps, right? You just started by bringing awareness at the school level, at the local level.
Mhm.
That's a relatively kind of easy first step for all of us to do. I'm sure you had no idea that it was going to manifest into kind of national policy. But start small, maybe? Just start with small steps after we listen to the whisper?
Yeah. And remember too, like when you start solving a problem, a lot of others you will empathize and also want to be part of that. So, by the time I had gotten this thing really rolling, wrote the book, Sears called me and said, "Hey, do you want to build a national nonprofit for us?" We did. And
See,
so,
I love that the whole starting from scratch. For our listeners who may not be seeing us visually, we are looking at Marie's book, A Life Made from Scratch. So, and she's sharing some of those stories from that book. So I just wanted to make sure people were aware of your book.
It's how we know her so well.
Yes, exactly. So I love that idea of starting small and working forward, right? You've had to pivot a lot in your life and in your career. I'm sure a lot of our listeners would be fascinated to hear about what it was like to be a congresswoman and how you found yourself in that position and the pivots you had to make within that role and afterward. I'd love to know more about that.
Oh, I'm happy to share. And it was all a bit happenstance, right? But it does always start with passion and a problem, right? So
Hold on, I want to underscore that. It always starts with passion and a problem. Just put that in your heads, people.
every
okay?
time, every solution starts out with a problem and passion attached to it. So So when I was in my 20s, I did a lot of women's rights work and civil rights work, and felt very passionate. Still do, and really that remains. My North Star is always equity for all, everybody, and standing up for marginalized communities and the like. And so I guess I'm always supporting the underdog. Um, because of all of that, and because I've had great experiences in my life, I get exposed to a lot of different things, right? So I have pivoted many, many times in my career. I was a marketing executive for a while, and I ran a management consulting. The reason I started from scratch a management consulting company that serviced the big four management consulting companies and large and mid-sized agencies was because I couldn't find childcare.
Wow.
That was
That was the problem.
Right. The problem was no childcare. It's like, well, and it's, as you ladies know, it's hard to be a high-level marketing person and then not be there 24/7, be available 24/7, right? So I had to figure out, okay, what is my pivot? So I could control my schedule better when I was the CEO of a small, marketing consulting firm and management consulting agency. So I built that from scratch, right? And that started with me cold calling people, like literally hundreds and hundreds, right? So, you do what you can, when you can, and how you can. But so every time I've had a problem, whether it was childcare or one of my kids had a challenge, and moved on from that, did research on it, talked to experts, find partners in the cause, right? And then build a coalition and solve the problem.
Wow.
So where did politics enter into all of this?
Yeah, that's a
I would have just stuck with marketing.
Right. That probably would have been the smarter thing.
Who knows?
Yeah, really. There are days, believe me. So I was chugging along, had just finished 2 years as the executive director of the national nonprofit. I was doing my management consulting company and the nonprofit at the same time. And I was a little tired after a couple of years. So we folded it into another national nonprofit. They used it as their curriculum around anti-bullying and support for kids and that kind of thing, which was great. Couldn't have been happier to do that. And I had been very active as a gun reform activist going back to Million Mom March, which is would be 25 or 30 years ago. I joined Moms Demand Action in, I think, 2013 or 2014, right after it started, right? And so I was very active in lobbying for legislation and a bunch of things, and working with an amazing group of women, right? People started asking me to run for Congress, and I looked at them like, you are high. You are high.
It does sound nuts.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's like
Congress,
right, like right out of the gate.
Right. And, and then my retort is always, I've never even run for student council, right? And again, it kind of goes back to the sticky ball and the passion and problem analogy. We had at that point a congressperson who was a Democrat that was anti-women, was anti-immigrant and anti-healthcare, voted against the ACA. And my hair was on fire about that. And so
there's the passion.
Yeah. And then it's like, oh no, no, ma'am. And then Trump got into office. And I, that night, we have a tradition in our house. Some of our best friends come over and we watch election night together. And we thought for sure Hillary was going to win.
Everybody did.
Yeah. And so as the night went on and people left early at like 10, or usually they would stay early.
We were assuming that she had it.
And so it was looking bad. And I stayed up till like 4 a.m. because I kept on refreshing my computer like, oh, this can't be right. This is, and I'm weepy and all that. I go to bed for a couple hours and I get up and then I'm like, you know what? Because someone had printed out a candidate's guide to Illinois politics, which is on the Illinois elections site. And I threw it out. I got it out of the garbage can. I'm like, okay, how do you do this, sucker? Okay, how do you do this? And I found an organization called Illinois Women's Institute for Leadership, which is a wonderful organization. It's like getting an MBA in 9 months in politics and government, right?
Wow.
Teaches you how to be a candidate, run a campaign, and also administer and operate within both politics and government. And so you have to apply for it, and they get hundreds of applicants. You had to have, right away, you had to have a CEO letter, a member of state legislature and Congress, and I got all that wrapped up in a day because it had to be in 36 hours. And it was like a 20-page document. So got all that done. I stayed in my pajamas all day and I canceled all of my meetings. I've never done that ever. And I've never even stayed home sick. Like I've never had a sick day. I was on fire, got that done. They luckily accepted me. And it was the launch pad into me running against Dan Lipinski in 2018. Lost by 2 points that time. And then ran again, got up, dusted it off, and ran again in 2020 and won by 4 points against 4 guys.
So there you go. I think really clearly got up, dusted off. There's a big theme with this podcast that we do, and we hear over and over again, right? Not fearing risk. If you fail, you're failing forward. All of that stuff.
Yes, 100%.
We hear it over and over again. 100%. I think it's incredibly important for everyone to hear that you could have given up.
Yeah.
You could have given up that first go round, but something propelled within you to continue striving forward. And it happened for you.
Yeah.
I'm dying to know what it felt like the first time you walked into your official role, like your first day on the job. How did you feel? Like what,
huge imposter syndrome. Huge.
Uh-huh.
And by the way, I offer this to your listeners because they're probably people that are looking at transitions or at a crossroads in their life and looking to pivot. And I've done it many times, is that be open about your imposter syndrome. Know that, hey, maybe I won't know how to do this, but I will figure it out. If you just have that underlying passion around being able to figure it out, and know that, because I'm not an expert at anything, and I don't even excel at anything. The only thing I'm really, really good at is figuring out how to get things done. So I'm sort of like a process geek. Like I love me some process, right? And so, so at the end of the day, that was a surreal moment. I remember, actually it was the day of January 6th, walking and kind of being in a daze because our job that day was to certify the election. And that's like wearing a 20-pound hat on your head that is a very significant thing. And you're walking and you're a little bit of like in a dreamlike state. And I'm walking in the tunnels under the Capitol by myself. And I'm like, wow, I am here. And then I'm starting to have a little bit of a minor panic attack. Oh my God, when are they going to figure out that I'm not qualified to do this? And so, then I realized,
so you're brand new.
Yeah. It's that day, January 6th. Third day. Yeah.
It was your third day at work.
Hand to God.
And we're talking the January 6th.
Yeah, in 2021. Hand to God, I had just figured out how to get to the Capitol and find the ladies' room. I am not from my office because it's about 1.5 miles under the tunnels, right? And it's very tricky down there, right? And so I was like so proud of myself that I didn't get lost that time, right? Yay, yay me, And so I'm thinking about that, and imposter syndrome was really weighing heavy that day, but it was very surreal. I even said it, Steny Hoyer, who was the majority leader at the time, the night before we had a reception in the Capitol in the Rotunda. And I said, when do you stop being in awe of this place? He said, as soon as you start feeling that you are not in awe, you should probably go home.
Wow. Yeah, I would imagine it'll stay with you.
And it did. It stayed with me the entire 2 years I was there. Yeah. Never lost sight of that.
I also think, basically because I have read the book, that you also do a great job of surrounding yourself with, smart people, diverse people.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think
So
that's
important.
one of the things that, leaders can really, take a page of your book from.
It is.
You can't do it alone, right?
No, you can't do it alone. And I never have done it alone. And I have always had people around me that were way smarter than I am, and, and way nicer, like always. So I've been incredibly fortunate that way. When I've been a CEO, entrepreneur, in politics, I've had these amazing, creative, young people that have been really, and I've learned a lot from them, and hope they've learned a few things from me, right? So,
of course.
It is really operative, and the only way you can move forward and propel forward is to make sure you're constantly hearing and seeing new ideas and new people. So
I'm plus oneing that right there for sure. And there's some jargon for you, plus wanting it. But I think that creativity and good, new, fresh ideas, you have to be open. And have to be open to opposing points of view as well.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
I mean, I cannot imagine being in the halls of Congress. You're constantly facing opposing points of view. I'm wondering if you could share a bit about, because I know you worked on some pretty important legislation while you were there. Can you talk a little bit about how you worked with maybe people who had opposing points of view, like the diplomacy or tips around how to find your way around that to get your agenda through?
It was a little extraordinary during my term because it was in the heat of COVID, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it was done by the phone, whereas sometimes it would be done more in person. But I did reach out to Republicans. And you remember during my term, people were calling me a socialist. They thought I was so progressive. At the end of the day—
You just wanted it to be equity for all.
Right. And so at the end of the day, I would categorize myself as a populist progressive because, having a fair economy for everybody. And I believe in social capitalism, meaning that capitalism should be fair and not set up like it is right now, which leads us to an oligarchy, which we are in right now. We are in it.
Totally.
There's no, maybe kind of, sort of, we're in it. It's like people that are like, oh, we're heading towards an oligarchy or a constitutional crisis. No, actually, we're in it, honey.
Yeah.
Look around. So for me, like that need to always have a fresh point of view is important, even if you don't agree with it. So I would go to your point, I would go to Republicans and say, okay, what are we really after? What is the objective? So it's a little like in all the marketing meetings we've been in and say, okay, let's get back to what our objectives are.
Right,
exactly
What
right.
are our KPIs?
Yeah. What are we?
What are the goals?
What are we trying to achieve here? And let's not worry about strategy and tactics yet, right? Let's just say agree on these things, right? And it was interesting in the committee process because every bill goes through a committee that has jurisdiction over that area. So whether it is a health issue, a economic issue, an education issue, whatever, it goes through a specific committee. So one of my committees was small business, right? And we all wanted to lower taxes for a small business. Now, there were some Democrats that were resistant because they were beholden to large companies because they got money from large companies.
Sure.
So there was a little bit of that. And I was like, well, that's a bunch of horseshit. So, I actually, there's a bill that actually passed through Congress that I helped pass. My partner was a Republican, and we lowered expenses. So it effectively was a 5% tax cut for businesses under $1 million in net revenue, right? Which is a big deal.
That's a big deal.
Because let's remember, we've all owned small businesses, right? Like here is that for an entrepreneur and a small business owner, your profit is your income and your income is your profit.
Yep.
And that is getting double taxed. It gets income tax and the business tax, right? So it's very frustrating, right?
Yes.
That we are taxed at the same rate that a large company is taxed at.
Yes. And it's not that anybody doesn't want to pay taxes.
No,
it's just
that's
when
not
you're
it.
a small business,
It's hard.
it takes a huge chunk.
Yeah. And then how do you invest back in your business and all those things, right? So yeah, like I had a lot of heart for that because I went through it, right? And I would say that all the time to my husband when I was doing my taxes, I'm like, I get double taxed. I just do. Like, this is ridiculous. And so, but that is an example of working with a Republican because we had the same objective, right? And if we could do more of that where because I actually would kid around with them and they would call me the socialist and I would be like, oh, thanks.
That's nice. Well, yeah, I think that you use humor in great ways and you've given me advice recently about using humor in scenarios like that. I think that's a good point for everybody to hear. And we've discussed this before in previous podcasts, but finding a way to find the humor in it as a way of deflection, it disempowers a person who might be trying to disempower you.
That's right.
And so, but I think it's interesting, you of all people that we've talked to, there's clearly sides, some of those sides are a little bit muddier in business, but when you're in politics, there are clear delineations. So it's wonderful to hear what you passed, first of all. So thank you from all of us who are small business folks, but even more so that knowing how to bridge the divide and work together for a common goal.
Yeah.
So
And
that's
I think we have so
huge.
much more in common than we have apart. It's a very trite,
think
old
you're right.
political.
Yes.
But I got to tell you, the voters are united right now. They know what they want, and they're very clear. It is Congress that is not united.
You do make that point quite a bit, even in your own story, because you accomplished quite a bit when you were a congresswoman, and then you lost your district. So can you tell us a little bit about how that unfolded, first of all, but then secondarily, how that changed your life?
Yeah, all good things. Like, we all landed in a good space. So we should say from the outset that I believe, and I happen to be a faithful person, but whether you believe in Mother Nature, the universe, or God, right? It doesn't matter what you believe in. It was meant to be the way we all are right now. That way, I'm having this lovely conversation today, right?
That's right.
But I do believe in fate. And so, I don't want to get in the weeds on the inner workings of election law and all of that. But
thank God.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, because everyone will go,
See, I'm the opposite. I'm like, tell more. But go ahead. Yes, let's stay top level.
I'll keep it
I
at
won't be able to follow.
I'll keep it at a higher level, right? So every 10 years we have a census, and then that requires that each state government takes that census data and reapportions by population level all of its congressional districts, right? And state districts. So in 2021, they did that, got the census back. At that point, they thought that that Illinois had lost about 8,000 people in population. Ended up not being true, which is the funny irony of this, because we didn't need to get rid of my district at the end of the day, but which is a funny thing. So then we had to go from 18 congressional districts down to 17. They took my district and split it into 5 pieces. The process by which that happened is very murky. So I can never say it was fair or unfair.
And you're a process person.
Yeah. So nothing is in writing. So in our statute, it just says get input from the public, have some meetings, and then execute maps, right? And there's no who, what, when, where, how. So we're all in business. We have all had a responsibility chart in front of us, or a
RACI or something.
Yeah, right, a RACI. Yeah, RACI chart that would say, okay, we've made this much progress, and this is the owner of the project. This is who's executing it, and all of those things, right?
Is everybody's role? Yeah.
Zero. There's zero around that. And by the way, in politics, I had to implement that in Congress because that is like a very scary thing for politicians. And I'm like, well, guess what, baby?
Well, there's accountability associated with that.
Right.
They don't like that.
That is exactly right. So, so they ended up. It was very funny. In the middle of the night that they were going to pass the maps, in Illinois State Constitution, you have to pass it on a given date, and we were like an hour away from that date, right? And so at the last minute, they carved me out of my district by 2 blocks. So then I had a Hobson's choice, right? I had to run against a dear friend in the new district that my home had been put into. It also carved out about 30,000 votes that I would have been guaranteed. So it pretty much guarantees that I would lose any election moving forward. And so then the other district was custom made and renamed the new Illinois 6. And so I did choose between running in Illinois 4 or Illinois 6. My old district's name was Illinois 3. And so, I ultimately decided to run against an incredibly wealthy person who was well-established and whatever. The district was more conservative than my district, and I did lose. And I believe in the voters, right? The voters made their choice, and that's okay. So it all landed in a good place, right? We wish the new congressperson well. We all move on. A lot of people took exception, wrote op-eds, and then, everyone was angry and, whatever. And it's like, well, maybe that was my sign personally that I should go back to my activism roots. I've been an activist for 30 years. Maybe I'm better at being an activist than I am a politician. And while a week doesn't go by that I don't get asked to run for Congress or for Senate again. I mean, literally, it's like...
Is that of any interest to you to ever do that again?
Not really, because what happened to me, and that's another in the weeds, you don't want to hear that whole silly thing. But the, super PACs, which is why I work on getting money out of politics, because a super PAC that ended up being censured for lying about what they said about me, because all it was abjectly true or untrue. And it was very, very ridiculous. It was a ridiculous, trumped up thing. Operative word, Trump.
I was over here doing that.
Unintended, right.
Yeah. So And all of the campaigns that lied about me got formally censored for lying about me and making up a ridiculous lie. And I got a lot of apologies from, political entities and all of that. Ended up being fine. Forgive and forget. We all move on. But I think that they just try it with a different flavor of fake scandal or fake issue or whatever. Like, I think it would just all happen again. They went after my family, specific members of my family, in a really grotesque way. They did permanent damage to a lot of people. And so I think they would do it all again. And
it's
I don't
not
think
worth the cost, right? Right. And I love that. Well, I love that we're not losing you and your social activism, because that is what you've stood for and what made me like you so much. And I think that we're really lucky to have you leaning into that, staying on the forefront of it. I think it's incredibly important, and I'm personally grateful. So thank you for everything you've done. I know we're getting close to...
Well, I think just some of the big takeaways just from the story you just told us is that, guess what? It's not always going to be fair. Oftentimes things are relatively unfair.
Yeah.
And it's not going to go your way. But
not always.
Then you move on, right?
You start from scratch.
It just means that the universe, God, or Mother Nature wants you to be in a different place doing a different thing. That's all that means. Like, that's what everybody should just take it as a sign, right?
Take it as a sign. Yeah. There's something else ready for you.
Important.
Yeah.
And listen to it and adhere to it. Well, Marie, we want to say thank you so much for being here. Honestly, we could talk to you for hours. Don't you agree, Liz?
Man, yeah.
I mean, I want to, again, just put a little plug in for Marie's book, A Life Made from Scratch.
For our YouTube watchers, I'm going to hold it up to the camera.
Oh my God, it looks just like you.
It's such a great book. It's not just great stories like she's been telling us today, but it's lots of wisdom. Lots of wisdom from a kick-ass woman. So
seriously,
believe me, she loves process, and she tells you how to be just as successful as she is. Very cool.
So thank you, Marie.
My pleasure. It was lovely chatting.
Likewise.
Yes, we appreciate it.
Don't forget, we are Words of Wisdom from Kick-Ass Women. We seriously had one of the most kick-ass women as a guest today. Make sure you watch us on YouTube or visit us at kick-ass-women.com. Thank you.
And Marie, very quickly, where can people get in touch with you?
You can go to my website, which is marienewmanstudio.com. So it's my name, studio.com. And on there, if you want me for speaking engagements or you just have a question, I do look at my email every day. So if you even have a question, whether it's business related or entrepreneurial or politics, please feel free to ask. I'm happy to answer questions.
Perfect. And very quickly, let me thank also our kick-ass sponsor, the Motion Agency. They are the largest independent, women-owned marketing communications firm in the Chicagoland area. So please check them out.